The Steve Lobby Agency presents the Christian Publishing Show, a podcast for writers who want to advance Christ's kingdom using the written word. Here's your host, Thomas Umstadt Jr.
Crowdfunding. It's a powerful and underused tool in the author's toolkit. Crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo allow you to put your book up for sale before it is ready to buy. It allows you to test the market to see if people even want to buy your book, and it gives you the money, if you're successful, to pay for your book to be finished, whether it's editing or cover designs or whatever it is that you need. And how these sites work is that people, your readers, help you fund your book by pledging a certain amount of money. You set a total goal of what you need, and your backers back. And in exchange, they get rewards like a copy of your book or even a signed copy of your book. And if you fail to hit your goal, you get nothing and no one is charged. It's a very low risk way of testing the market. And I am a big fan of crowdfunding. But the question is, how could you use crowdfunding for your book? And is it something that would even work for you? And to help us answer this question, we're going to be talking with a Marine Corps veteran who writes Christian fiction. He's the author of The Exorcism of Frosty the Snowman and has a fantasy novel, Shades of Black and Darkness Cast, on Kickstarter. Jonathan Schruger, welcome to the Christian Publishing Show.
Thank you, Thomas. It's great to be here.
So walk us through your thought process. Why did you go Kickstarter for your book? Why not just go straight to Amazon?
Well, I went straight to Amazon when I did The Exorcism of Frosty, and that was fine. I was kind of just exploring, testing the waters of self-publishing at the time. But for this novel, I wanted to kind of take things more slowly and go larger with the release. So I was actually just kind of sitting by myself figuring this out. And I'm like, I like Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a good way to go. I'd backed several board games on it, and I have way too many board games now because Kickstarter is a problem. If you don't have self-control, don't do Kickstarter. It's bad. But I was like, Kickstarter is a way to kind of secure investments without having to go through traditional publishing. You get people to back your vision, and you can maintain creative control over it. So I was kind of sitting there by myself. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to be the first one to ever do this because I'm so smart. And then I started doing my research and looking around. It's like, oh, I'm not that smart. This has already been done many, many times. So I started looking around, and I found, this guy with way too many consonants in his last name. And I looked at Thomas's ultimate crowdfunding course, and this could actually really work. So I decided to launch the novel onto Kickstarter. It took several months. It took a while to do everything that I needed to do for it, but it wound up working out.
So you went through the ultimate crowdfunding course, and walk us through kind of what were you doing during those months to prepare your Kickstarter page?
So what I was doing was working with my cover artist first to create an eye-grabbing graphic. When people are perusing through a bookstore, they're looking, if they're just window shopping, they're finding something that grabs their eye. Something that'll pull it off the shelf. And in Kickstarter, it's the same way. If you don't have a good graphic on there, they're not going to look at your stuff. People just aren't going to care. And you want to make people care. You want to make them go, ooh, that looks cool. So I worked with him for a while to get something that was eye-catching to just grab people's eyes. And then at the same time, I started developing developing the interest for the project by going through Facebook Messenger, tapping into the communities that I already developed. I am a Marine. We are very close-knit. We're kind of an insane, crazy tribe that got thrown together not by our choice, and we kind of had to accept each other. And then we drank the Kool-Aid, and it tastes good, and we love it. And whenever one of us does something, we're all about it. And so I contacted my Marine buddies. I was like, hey, guys, I'm putting out another book. And they all loved The Exorcism of Frosty. It's kind of humor written on their level. So they saw that I was putting this out there, and they're all like, "Hey, man, let us know when it's going out, and we'll promote it for you. We'll back it. We'll do whatever we got to do to make sure that you're successful." I was like, "Oh, that was pretty great," because that's one of the key tenets of the crowdfunding course is you need to build a tribe. And if you don't have a tribe, you're not releasing this to anybody. There will be no success here because if you can't release wide if nobody knows that you're there.
The key to crowdfunding is to have a crowd to get funded
Exactly.
from. You don't put your book on Kickstarter and strangers fund you. You're being funded by people who already know you. And there's a couple of things that you did there I really want to underline because they were really good. And one was investing money on the cover ahead of time. A lot of people think, oh, I need to get a cover for my book. The way I'll pay for the cover is with a crowdfunding campaign. But really, you need to come to the crowdfunding campaign with the cover already. What you're paying for with that crowdfunding is getting the book printed, the editing, the typesetting, all of the other things. But the cover is the one thing you need to pay for out of your pocket because you need an image on Kickstarter because that's how you'll be displayed on Kickstarter. You have to have a picture that represents the book. And so it's good that you spent time to get that right ahead of time. And I noticed that you had your artist also give you kind of other graphics to use on the Kickstarter page as headings. So, and we'll have a link if you want to check out the In Darkness Cast page on Kickstarter, kind of to see what he did. But you've got these really great graphics that pull through the page. And then the other thing that you did that was really good was reaching out to people one-on-one. So it's not like you had an email list of all of your Marine buddies on MailChimp, right? You reached out to each one of them one at a time, and that is really key if you don't already have a big list. So for people who've got 5,000 people on their email list, they don't need to do this. But if you're starting from scratch, you're reaching out to people one-on-one. And how did you reach out to them? Like, what did that look like? Were you emailing them? Were you Facebook messaging them? Text messaging? What did you do?
Oh, so what I did was I went into my Facebook and I created an Excel spreadsheet of all of my friends, and I typed in all of their names, and I just had some basic columns. I put one column that was their name, and I put another column, and that was if I had contacted them, and I color-coded that so I could just see it. So green if I had contacted them, yellow if they had responded, but I hadn't gotten a response yet, like actual feedback, and red if they weren't interested. So I had about 550 Facebook friends. So it took me a couple hours to make that Excel spreadsheet. And then for about an hour or 2 hours every day, I individually messaged every single one of them. Now, there were parts of it that I copy-pasted. If I had the link, I had, hey, if you're interested in more about this, subscribe to my newsletter. If you don't respond to this or if I'm bugging you, just let me know and I won't bug you anymore. All of that was copy-pasted, but the initial portion, the first 2 paragraphs or so, I individualized it for every single person because if you're going to reach out to people, you need to make a personal connection.
That's right. And were you asking them to back your campaign, or were you asking them to give you feedback on how to make it better?
Oh, I was not asking them to back the campaign. I got some great advice from an individual that you don't want to ask people for money because they'll just give you advice. And if you ask people for advice, they're way more likely to give you money. So what I did was I had the preview link to the Kickstarter, and I started this about a month and a half out before launching. I had the preview link to the Kickstarter, and I just asked them, hey, can you go take a look at this page and tell me what you think about it? Does it look good? Does it explain everything for you? If you're new to Kickstarter, if you're a Kickstarter veteran, does it make you excited? Do you want to know more? And that's all I asked for.
And did you end up getting some advice? Did people have some ideas on how to make it better? Or were they all just like, oh, I'm really excited. I can't wait for this to come out so I can back it?
So I actually had a mix of both. I would pretty much call it 50-50. I had some friends who were like, this is so great. It looks great. The artwork is beautiful. And, that was nice. It was support. It was great. And I had some people who went really in depth in it. They were like, hey, you should work on headings, maybe do an author photo. You should work on this thing over here, put this over here. I had people, and some of them were Kickstarter veterans themselves, not just backers, but creators. And they would go down through it and be like, hey, this is good, you should probably work on this just a little bit, feels a little wordy over here. And I got a lot of great feedback that I was able to use to make the page a lot better. And I will say that I only got one who just gave bad advice. But it was just obviously bad feedback. So it was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for taking the time. I'm not doing any of that.
Out of 500 friends, that's not bad.
Yes. I was expecting way worse.
And this is one thing when you're asking advice, just 'cause somebody gives you advice doesn't mean you have to take it. But you all know that already. So you've gotten your page put together. You've got the artwork. You created the page. You spent a month or so reaching out to people one at a time, sending them the preview link where they can check it out and give you feedback, but also where they can get excited. And Kickstarter also has a button on that preview page that says notify me when this page goes live. And if they click that, the Kickstarter will invite them to log into their Kickstarter account or create a Kickstarter account, which is great either way, right? If they're already a Kickstarter user, then it's just one click and they're done. And if not, you've got the step of creating a Kickstarter account out of the way ahead of time so that they're already signed up for Kickstarter. And then launch day happened. So walk us through what happened on launch day. You had a $2,000 goal that you were trying to raise for your book. What happened?
So it's a little different for me probably than for most people. I'm working nights. So I worked the night before, and then I had to stay up the next morning. Usually I get to sleep when I come home, but I stayed up the next morning, and I started messaging all the people that responded to me. So if they had greens in their response field, then I contacted them again, and I would ask them, hey, we're about to launch in a couple of hours. Go and check it out. So I did that for about 90 minutes. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, which I was told was about the best time to do this kind of thing, I launched the Kickstarter. And I watched it for about an hour or two, and I got about $500 in those 2 hours, which is fantastic. That's 25% of my total goal. And that was great, because I had people just like waiting. They were on the button ready to go because I had spent the week before kind of jazzing it up. I had my cover artist create graphics that say launching in 5 days, launching in 4 days. And I just put one post out every day of the week to my newsletter subscribers.
On Facebook?
Well, to my newsletter subscribers and on Facebook. So I tried to hit as wide as possible there. And after that, if people talked to me about it, then I would speak to them about it. I had great conversations. And then on the day of, I got $500 in the first 2 hours, and I thought, this is fantastic. I need to go sleep now. So I went and laid down on my bed, and it was hard to sleep. It's exciting. And I'm tossing, I'm turning. I tried reading a book. I kept checking my phone to see if anyone else had backed it, and I was like, this isn't going to work. I got to work again tonight. So I just prayed. I was like, God, you take control of this. You watch it for a little bit. I'm going to get some sleep. So I went to sleep, and I slept for about 5 hours, and I woke up, and I had 19 Facebook messages that said, congratulations, you're funded. And I'm like, what? And sure enough, the project was completely funded in 7 hours. And so I messaged my partner, Louis, the cover artist. Louis, we're funded. When I was sleeping, he's like, go back to sleep.
So that's great. And that's such an encouraging feeling, right? Because it's day one of your launch.
Yeah.
You have no idea how it's going to go. And remember, if you don't hit your $2,000 goal, you get nothing.
Exactly.
And no one is charged. So knowing that you hit the goal means that the money is unlocked. And as an indie author who's written one book, but this is your first, really big book. Because Frosty's Romance is kind of more of a novella.
Mm-hmm.
A great feeling. And now, as we look at your campaign as we record this, you're at 3,500. So you've overfunded. And the really cool thing about this, I want to underline this is $3,500 off of 59 backers. So that comes out to about $60 per backer. And this is one of the reasons why I really like crowdfunding, because it allows your super fans to do more than just spend $5 on your ebook. So I want to walk through, or I want you to walk us through your reward levels. What reward levels did you create, and how did you motivate people to give you more than $5 for the ebook? Why is it that some people are giving you as much as $100 for a copy of your book? Walk us through your reward levels.
So when I planned the pledges, first of all, I did a lot of research onto how I should do that. I asked Thomas for a lot of advice. I read some books. I read Stegmeier's book, Art of Crowdfunding, I think it's called. And then I took all those. You do want that minimum pledge level, pledge without a reward, just looking around, you get a digital thank you. And I have had no one take that, but everyone asked for it. I also put another one up that for $5, and you would just get digital wallpaper of the cover art. Because some people, they just want to look, they want to keep tabs on things, and everyone said, you should have a digital wallpaper backing level for $5. And I'm like, well, I guess that cost me basically nothing, so I'll throw it on there. No one has backed at that level, but it's good that it's there. I have a $10 level, which is just the digital ebook, and I figured most people would go for that one. It's $10, you get the book. Only 4 people backed at that level. Then I put a soft cover level for $20, a hardback level for $30, and then I did the big one. And I wasn't sure anyone would back this one. A signed, numbered hardback copy, and I limited it to 100 copies. I will tell you, the majority of my funds and backers have come from that level because the people that want to support you, they will put aside the money to support you.
And owning a signed and numbered copy, especially a signed and numbered first edition hardback, is appealing, right? Because there's a chance if you become a famous author, especially right now, since you're a new author, right? You're a big question mark. It's like, wow, he could become the next big thing. He may not, right? But the idea of, I bought a signed and numbered copy back when there's only 100 copies. I remember backing his Kickstarter at the very beginning. Your friends will feel this way towards you. And they may be right? This may be a really great investment. It may not be, but it's still a treasured thing to have on a bookshelf, even if it doesn't, you don't end up selling it on Pawn Stars, selling it at a pawn shop or at an auction later, like a Harry Potter book. And what a great way of allowing people who really are excited and would love a signed and numbered hardback. And for those of you who don't know, when I say numbered, this is a technique from the art world where artists will say, I'm signing and numbering a certain number of pieces of art. Let's say it's 100 like you did. So they'll do, copy 1 of 100, 2 of 100, and they will sign it. And then they swear, I'll never do another limited edition run like this. So what you own becomes scarce. It becomes valuable. It becomes special. And it's really important to have this because it's really easy for your book to become ubiquitous and worthless in the sense that it's everywhere and there, it's 99-cent ebook. And this is a really great way to fight against that 99-cent ebook temptation. Now, you have some levels that are even more expensive than $100. So walk us through your even bigger levels.
So I put these levels on because I was told to. I was like, there is no way anyone is going to drop $250, $500, or $1,000 on these particular pledge levels. That's just an insane amount of money. And I did not understand the psychology of Kickstarter or how much people want to be immortalized. So I did a $250 level, and what I said there was you can immortalize yourself in the sequel to Shades of Black 1, and you can actually be a character in Shades of Black 2. We'll sit down over an internet call, and we'll build you a character that'll have some lines, they'll have some function within the storyline, and you will get to be in my next book. For $250. You'll also get the signed numbered hardback, and it'll be guaranteed to be numbered between 1 to 10. So giving that guarantee also gives that little bit of incentive. I could get a really good number on this.
Right.
And again, that's that risk of investment. Hey, I could drop this on eBay, and if he's big, then I can definitely make my money back. Well, the next one was $500, and that guarantees that you could be a warlord. You'll be one of the bad guys that my good guys have to take down. And that is just really appealing, especially to Marines.
And you've had one person, and these are limited rewards, which is really smart, right? You don't want to have 1 million phone calls. But so far you've had 3 people back at the $250 level. So that's $750 towards your goal. People who want to be immortalized in your next book. And of the 2 available of being a bad guy, one of those has sold already.
That's what happened. It happened yesterday, actually.
Yeah, and I will say this is really common. People love being featured in other people's books. The idea of being immortalized. As authors, this isn't valuable to us because, we're all here, we write books. Having our name on a book is kind of common, but for a non-author, it seems like a big deal. It's kind of like an Emmy Award. Winning an Emmy is actually really easy. There are a lot of Emmy Awards, and in LA, everyone has an Emmy for something. If you've been in the movie business for any amount of time. But if you live outside of LA, you don't know how common Emmy Awards are, and it's this really prestigious thing, and it's really valuable and special. And being an Emmy Award winning, whatever you are, outside of LA is this really high prestige thing. And it's the same thing about being featured in a book. And this is money that you're otherwise leaving on the table, right? These are characters you'd have to create anyway. These are characters you'd have to name anyway. And for $500, somebody is helping you name their bad guy. What a great deal.
Yeah, they're paying me to do the work I was already going to be doing, and they're paying me way more than I was going to pay me.
But now they're going to have a sense of ownership, right? They feel like they own part of your book, which means when your book comes out, guess who's going to be your loudest advocates telling their friends about your book, especially the people whose names are in the book, right? They're going to be buying copies for all of their friends and be like, hey, I'm famous.
Exactly. I'm in this one.
Which is, and then you also have, and you'll have one of these, no one's backed at it yet, $1,000 level. Walk us through that real quick.
So that one I call the Avatar of Sinai, and the more money that you pledge, I wanted to make sure it had a better title on it. You would get your own lore within the series. Basically, we would sit down over an internet call, and you could craft a character, whether it was a hero or a villain, and that one would be featured. So not just, a couple of lines over here. You'd be part of the overall meta plot. And not only that, I would write you a 10,000 word short story with your character's background. I would dramatize what brought your character to this point in Shades of Black 2. And I would make you your own little chapbook. I'd print you out a special copy with a special cover, your name in it, signed. You're also guaranteed to get a copy of Shades of Black 1, guaranteed to be numbered 1, and that would be what you would receive for that $1,000. You just get a lot of guarantees for that and a lot more involvement.
And we'll see if anyone backs to that. $1,000 is a big gift, especially, or a big pledge level. But these are the sorts of things that you would put into a $1,000 level to make it interesting. So you've got your fundamentals in the right place. So real quick before we go, walk us through kind of some of the lessons that you learned the hard way, and what would you, if you could go back, what would you do different?
So I actually think that I skipped a lot of lessons learned the hard way because I went and got some education. I'm actually seeing a lot of projects that are flailing or failing. There is a lot of fear out there, especially due to the circumstances. You have the pandemic going on, and a lot of people are thinking Kickstarter projects would be failing. I did not think that they were going to fail. You have a bunch of people stuck at home with not the best spending habits. Kickstarter is doing just fine. So I was watching a lot of projects that were failing, so I went and I got the education that I needed. I did Thomas's Ultimate Crowdfunding course. I read the book that I needed to read, which was Stegmaier's Art of Crowdfunding.
And we'll have a link to that in the show notes. It's a crowdfunder strategy guide, Build a Better Business by Building a Community by Jamie Stegmaier. It's arguably the best book on crowdfunding, at least that I have found, if not in the market overall.
It was a pretty great read. It was very easy to read, and they have an easy reference section in the back so that I could flip through it while I was setting up my campaign. I could go back and refer to those sections that I needed to. So having done the research, I was able to skip the learning it the hard way for a lot of things.
It's like a commercial for education overall. It's like,
exactly.
Instead of learning things the hard way, get an education, kids, and then you can do things the easy way.
It's like when I was growing up, my brother wanted to learn things the hard way, and I'd watch him get beat, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That looks like it hurts. So I went out, I watched other people get beat, and I decided not to do that. So I spoke to Thomas a lot. He actually counseled me to delay launching my Kickstarter program because I wanted to do it in the beginning of April. And he took a look at it and he said, I don't think you've done the homework you need to do to engage your tribe first. I think you need to take a month, take 2 months, engage your tribe, and get them excited about this before you launch it. And yeah, I'm not a patient person. I was like, I don't want to do that. And I listened because he knows more than I do, and so I delayed. I did the work that I needed to do, and then when I launched, I saw the success that came from waiting, doing the work, doing the research, and that's the success story that I have so far.
Yeah, and I will say I was really excited to see that you were doing the work, because I wasn't sure, because I was like, I knew reaching out to all of that number of people one-on-one seems very intimidating. But I will say one of the nice things about crowdfunding is it gives you a really good excuse to do that, right? It may have been awkward to reach out to those people one-on-one about your book coming out. Although a book launch, maybe you can get away with it if you do it right around your book launch. But the fact that it's a crowdfunding campaign makes it a little bit more novel, a little bit more interesting. And asking for advice on a crowdfunding campaign is, I feel like, a lot easier of an ask to start the conversation, right? And the only people that you sent a message being like, hey, it's available if you want to back it, were people that had responded favorably. So you're not really spamming your friends who haven't already indicated that they're interested, which is important, because you don't want to be that, sleazy Amway guy who only reaches out to the friends when you want to sell your Amway products or whatever.
There was a definite vibe I was trying to avoid, which was join my MLM scam.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to fall into that. If you're talking to your friends on Facebook, that's a trope that's out there, and that can be death to any kind of campaign that you're trying to do. So what I tried to do was I started out with a joke that I knew everyone would appreciate. Hey, how's Corona Teen treating you? How's the Children of the Corn going for you? Then I would say, hey, I'm launching this page, and humility is important here. I'm launching this page. I really want it to succeed. Is there any way I can ask you to take a minute of your day, go take a look at it real fast? If it doesn't appeal to you, turn it off and then tell me why it didn't appeal to you. And that's all I asked for. And I, of course, did that copy and paste, included the link, all the other stuff. And I got great results from that. You don't want to be like, I'm doing this thing and you should back it because we're friends and that's what friends do. And you don't want to do that.
And imagine it was a great opportunity to reconnect with some of your friends that you haven't talked to in a long time. Like, did any conversations on other topics? You're like, oh, I had no idea you gotten married.
So I was in the Marine Corps Intel community, which means we think we're all smart. And as soon as they found out that it was an apologetic novel.
Spoiler, other Marines do not feel like Marine intelligence.
Hey,
there's all that in the bag of
smart. We can be smart. But anyway, they were asking me questions about God.
Wow.
They're like, okay, so what's the theology on this? How are you treating it? How are you going to go into it? And these were arguments we had, friendly arguments sometimes. They were kind of friendly for Marines. We had these arguments where...
Because we should say real quick, just to jump in, you wrote this book as a way of ministering and sharing the gospel with your kind of jaded Marine buddies.
Exactly.
The target, it's not that you're just reaching out to Marines because that you're a Marine. It's like, no, this is a book by and for Marines, and you're trying to use it as a vehicle to bring the gospel to them. So the fact that before the book is even out, these gospel conversations are happening, that's really exciting to hear.
Exactly. I mean, I targeted this at the cynics, who don't really believe in anything anymore because, they grew up, they weren't really believing in anything. And then they joined the Marine Corps and they thought that was going to be where they were going to find their meaning. And then, it's the government. So they stopped believing in that. So they're all jaded and cynical. But they were really enjoying these conversations that were taking place because of the characters that are in the plot having these conversations. So actually what took the longest part of every day when I was individually messaging was talking to these guys about the plot. As I was explaining things, they're like, what's your concept of God? Do you think he's a person or a force? And I'm like, okay, well, this is getting deep fast. So I would be talking to them about all these different kinds of things and saying, hey, this is where I'm approaching it from. And this is how the story is going to approach it. Now, the story isn't going to hammer cynics and atheists and people who are asking questions. The story doesn't even really provide answers to the questions that are being raised. It just raises the questions. And then we get to talk about it. And people love arguing about stuff. I don't know if you've joined a Star Wars Reddit, or me and Thomas beforehand, we were arguing about Star Wars.
No, we weren't. We agree that the new ones are not as good as the old ones. Back when I was a kid, they made real Star Wars.
They should remake it.
Disney's ruined everything.
Game of Thrones. You look at these, what we call nerd communities, and they love discussing these kinds of things. And I wanted to create a discussion. I didn't want to declare. I didn't want to necessarily preach. I wanted to create a discussion where people will talk about these universal problems of suffering. Why does God seem to fail? Why do God's people fail? And how can we prevent that from happening? And these are the discussions that I wanted to create. And so I was having these discussions before the book had even come out. Like,
it's a
okay,
good sign that your book is working.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. We're almost out of time, but real quick, tell us where people can find out more about you.
More about me? Well, you can go to the Kickstarter page, of course. I have an author's website called creativegrumbles.com, and you'll be able to find out more about novels that I have out, novels that I have coming out, because I am putting out more. This is my job now. So definitely Shades of Black 2, Shades of Black 3, Exorcism of Frosty, probably more coming in the Exorcism series because I keep having requests for more on that. That wasn't expected. So there will be more coming out on creativegrumbles.com. Of course, you can subscribe to my newsletter if you go to creativegrumbles.com. Just click the link for that. Give me your email address, and I will, of course, send you more news every month on that.
Awesome. And we'll have links to all of those things in the show notes. Jonathan, any final tips or suggestions or encouragement?
Don't be afraid of what's going on in the world. If the Lord has told you to do something, you just need to go ahead and do it and not look at what's going on. Like Peter walking on the water. There was a huge storm going on around him, but Jesus said, hey, come. And so he got out of the boat and he moved to Jesus and he did something amazing. And it's only when he started looking at the circumstances around him and the environment and he took his eyes off of Jesus that is when he went down. And so I would say, don't be afraid of what's going on. You just move on. You do what you're told. And a phrase we have in the Marine Corps, just shut up and color. Do what you're told.
What a great place to end it. Just do what you're told. If God tells you to do something, just do it. Jonathan Sugar, thank you so much for joining us today on the Christian Publishing Show.
Thank you, Thomas.
This episode is brought to you by the Ultimate Crowdfunding Course for Authors. Learn how to use crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo to raise money for your book before it comes out. This is the course that Jonathan went through to learn how to do a Kickstarter campaign for his book, and you can use this course to learn how to do the same for you. And this course has helped many authors successfully crowdfund their books and achieve their publishing dreams. And a quick update on Jonathan. Since we recorded that interview, that $1,000 level we discussed has been funded, and he now has over $5,000 raised. The campaign ends in a week or so. If you want to check it out, we will have a link in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to the Christian Publishing Show. For more information and to get episodes delivered to your phone automatically, visit christianpublishingshow.com.